Good evening, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Faith, Family, and Friends. Waiting in the wings are a couple friends of mine, and we're going to dial into them all the way from Michigan to Maine. Hello, Brent and Lanessa.
Hello.
Hello there.
Yeah, hello there. I love to hear that accent. Oh, my God. I miss it. Too long here in Michigan. What'd you say? Say that again. You know, they either don't understand it or they want to like, oh, that was so cool. Say it again. I get tired of it. Like, so I try to go home for 2 weeks in the summer. My wife and I to obviously to see family and friends, but to recover that accent. So, so you guys are zooming us or not? Actually, we're StreamYarding you. You on the island or you in Jonesport?
So we actually live in Herman.
Yeah.
Herman. Sorry.
Right.
Your roots are Beals Island,
Jonesport.
Jonesport.
Ma-
Big diff, right?
There's a huge difference.
Yes, there is. Yeah.
There's a huge difference. And in fact, I'm from Masons Bay, which is even more different than being from
Bougie. More bougie
Jonesport
than
or
Beals.
Beals.
Right. And my dad, my second dad, Donald Beal, would say that too. Don't ever mix us up with Beals Islanders, right?
He was a Jonesporter.
Yes, and his
That's
blood
right.
his blood runs blue, politically as well. But anyway, we won't go there.
Who's his dad?
What's that?
Who's Donald's dad?
His dad, I forget his name. He was a coastie. I believe he kept the lighthouse, and Edith with his mother. We always joke and say Edith's boy. His twin brother, David, and they're identical in most every way, but they went separate ways. David in education is superintendent of 102 for a while. He lost his wife a couple of years ago, complications from COVID. Of course, my mother, as you probably know, is in the nursing home.
Yes.
And so we're related, Alyssa. Now, tell me, is your grandmother was Aunt Dot? Is that right, or am I?
Yes. So
Good.
Jack was my dad. He passed
Okay.
away in December. So he
Yeah.
would have been your first cousin.
Yes, right.
Yeah. And
So we're second cousins.
cousins. Yes.
Yeah, that's great.
And
Yeah.
Aunt Sandra, she's in the nursing home in Machias. Is that
Yep.
right? Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, Donald takes it for a ride in the wheelchair every day. But I have fond memories of Aunt Dot. Just kind of, I like to share that real quick. Visiting her when she was sick, and she knew the Lord real strong. She has such a sweet spirit about her. Yeah, they all were great people. The looks.
I was her Nini.
Yours are Mimi?
No, she called me Nini.
Meanie.
Yeah.
Okay.
She watched me so my mother, Lorna, could graduate high school.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, that's sweet. Wow, I
Yeah.
love it. So, Brent, you are a Beal through and through,
I am.
Jonesport.
Yeah.
That lineage goes all the way back to the main big guy, right? That had all those kids.
It goes back to Tall Barney Beal.
Tall Barney Beal.
Wow.
And it actually goes back even further to that.
Okay.
We've traced it back to the early 1600s. The Beal family at that time had an E on the end of it, so Beale.
Yep.
And they first landed in the Yarmouth region,
Okay.
down Yarmouth and
So the
You
main.
can lose the ass. He's
Oh
hungry.
yeah.
for
Please
mother
do.
tongue.
Please do. Don't let
and
me-
and so originally they started in Yarmouth, and then migrated up the coast and ended up in what was then Jonesboro.
Okay.
Uh,
Yeah, a lot of the looks came from there actually originally.
Yeah.
Yep.
So and so in 1832, the village of Jonesport got kind of mad because at being part of Jonesboro, it took them a day and a half sometimes to get to Jonesboro proper to have the town meeting, and
Oh,
so
really?
they got mad and said, we want our own town. We
Yeah.
want to be incorporated. So in 1832, Jonesport broke off and became incorporated as a town.
And so did Beals Island follow thereafter?
So
Or they
Beals
owned
Island, so it was always Beals Island was always part of Jonesport until 1925,
Oh, that's quite late. Yeah.
when Beals Island became their own town.
Uh-huh.
So,
Wow. Well, I have fond memories of going to Great Watts and visiting Pastor Franklin Libby, good friend of mine.
yeah,
His new wife is still living. She's in the nursing home near my mother. I connected the two of them last year, and her mind, because she can hear but can't, she can understand but can't hear. So she has a little tablet you write on, and I was able to share with her. There's Mom, because they were very close. Mom and Dad, my biological dad, drove the seafood truck for Franklin and Eleanor for a few years.
mm-hmm.
And of course, he was our pastor for a number of years. And so a lot of fond memories going over to Great Watts Island. And of course, we have some other friends there too. So I want to let our audience to know it's not just our old home night tonight, but if it is, it's okay. Because I have had people say to us, well, wish you did more interviews with people we knew. Franklin Johnson, if you're listening, I get it. But we do try to do a kind of a, I don't know, what would you say, Amy, a potpourri of different people. So it's always good. It warms my heart to be able to connect to back home and down East Maine. And so it's great to have you. I was following your vacations. You guys go all over the place. My God.
We had fun. We don't do it very often, but we had a good time.
So this year was our 20th anniversary.
Okay.
And
congratulations.
We thank you. We try to go and explore different areas of the country whenever we can.
Okay.
When we're able, we're very blessed to be able to do that.
Uh-huh.
And this year we were going to go back to Hawaii. We've been there a couple of times. We went there on a honeymoon. We went there on our 10th anniversary. And I hate to say that it was.
It's gonna sound very pompous.
It's going to sound very pompous, but we were like, we've been there and done that.
No, it doesn't. You're down.
So,
you're not pompous.
And so my dad. So my dad was in the Korean War.
Mm-hmm.
In between 1953 and 1955, he was stationed in Japan.
Yeah,
and they always had there was always a picture, and the picture was of him standing in front of Mount Rainier in Washington State in his uniform, and he didn't really talk about his time in the Army, other than he loved it in Japan.
Right.
Very, very similar to many of the guys and girls that have fought for our country. They don't talk about that a lot because it's something you did. It is, and some of it was difficult. And so anyway, we had that picture of him, and around this time last year, we were trying to figure out what we wanted to do for our anniversary, and. I said I've always had a drawing to go to the Pacific Northwest. I love that area. You've seen it in movies, you've seen it in pictures, and I wanted to go there and see.
I wanted to get out of the damp. I was picturing it to be damp and dreary and rainy, and I'm like, we live there. I don't need to. I'm gonna have to travel across the country to get that.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I said would be cool, I'd be like, hey, I always have this picture of my dad standing in front of Mount Rainier in Washington. He was on leave from the Army. They had come into Seattle for some reason, and he and a couple of buddies, I think, there was a picture of three of them, and he's standing in front of this mountain. And I said, wouldn't it be cool to recreate this picture? None of my family had ever been back out to Washington State. We didn't have any reason to be out there.
Right.
So that's what we decided we were going to do on our vacation. It was one of the things that we purposed to do. And so this August, the very first thing we did when we landed in Seattle, the next day, is we drove up to Mount Rainier, and it was spectacular.
It occurred to us on the ride up there, though, there's only one way to the visitor center. And I said, because I'm a historian, I'm a pretty sentimental historian.
That's good.
So I had said that we're traveling the same road,
Right, the road
the
hasn't
exact
changed.
same road that your dad, like,
That's so cool.
and the picture, one of the pictures that we had taken and shared in that post was a picture of a blue metal roof. And that was always a big laughing point because my father-in-law had a blue metal roof installed on his house in Jonesport, and it was the ugliest thing that you can imagine. It was like Play-Doh blue. I mean, it was light colored, just ugly. And we went past this building, and I was like, "Oh my word, Brent, you've got to turn around. I've got to have a picture of that building." I'm like, "What if that was the inspiration for your dad?"
Yeah. Right.
Right.
And it clicked with him years later. Oh, I'll put a light blue. Oh my word! And then the trees.
So one of I'm trying to find the picture to share with everybody.
Yeah, sure.
One of the things that we noticed as we were driving up the mountain, okay, was my wife kept saying, "Look at these trees. They're beautiful. We're at the top of these trees." And
I didn't know we were at the top.
And I said, "Well, these are just the tops of the trees. There's 400 feet below us that they're growing, these huge trees." She said, "What kind of trees are they?" And I said, "They're Douglas fir trees.
Yes.
And they're native to Washington State.
Mm-hmm.
They're not native to Maine."
Right.
Douglas fir tree, there are different species of Douglas fir tree, but the ones that we had in Washington are not native to Maine.
Right.
But my father always talked about, he was always proud of his Douglas fir trees that he planted out behind the shed out in the house in Jonesport.
Wow. And
it came from the trip that he took up this mountain in Washington State. He was there. He loved those trees, and that's all he would talk about. He'd tell everybody about these Douglas fir trees. He's the only Douglas fir trees in Jonesport. You know, so
probably in all of Maine.
Yeah, so it was really, and they're still. We've sold the house.
Yeah.
Dead now, but their trees are still there.
Growing good. Wow.
You go down by, they're there. But so it was just really cool that we were on this same road that he traveled 70 years ago.
Wow.
In 1954.
Yeah.
And these same sites that we saw. And so we were able to.
There's that ugly blue roof.
Yeah.
I'm excited to see this.
I don't. Yeah, you probably can't.
I don't know if you can go closer. Let's see. I'm going to minimize me if I can. I don't know if how to do that.
How come I can't see?
Because you have the background on.
Oh.
Yeah, I thought you had it. I didn't know if that was your Hussey grand piano there.
No, that's some sort of.
No, it's the background.
That's
I got you. Yeah.
not gonna work.
Okay. Hold on. Get them back. All right. Let's try to
That's
get you guys bigger, but
I don't know if you can see that picture.
well, it looks like your dad. Is that your dad?
That's my dad. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
That was the picture that we took, and then here's this fat guy that recreated that picture 70 years later.
I love it.
I'm a lot older than he was in that picture, and I'm certainly not in any kind of uniform. But so it was really enjoyable. We had a great time, and it was an amazing country.
Yeah, there's something to be said about reconnecting to history. I don't know that I wish. I mean, in all my education and learning, I think the one regret I have is not studying history enough, because I really like it. And I like it for the reasons I think you guys do and other people seem to. It's not just about dates. When you connect, especially if it's your family, with a piece of history like you guys did, you almost get goosebumps. And I'm sure you did driving up that road.
Yeah.
Recreating that. It almost makes you cry.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's hard to explain it, but I just think there's something God puts in all of us to want to belong. And then when we can find that root, way back, it just resonates. I mean, there's a reason why. And when I share my stories about my mother, for a while it was called Conversations with Mother.
I
But
love
people, I was just getting it out of my system. And, you know, I journal on Facebook as much as I do with my books, you know, because I'm right there. And I didn't realize the effect it had on people who maybe didn't even know her, but yet they related to their mother like that or somebody. And it was a familiarity of the human experience with family, with friends. And it just makes us all feel belonging. I don't mean to sound, hey, we're all a part of the universe. I'm not saying that, but in some way, that's true.
True.
Yeah, I think it's built into us.
Yes.
We have to know. We have to know the building blocks that we come from. I think it's important. To be able to reach back and to know what our ancestors have done, and that in history is just so important.
It is.
I'm a huge history buff. I really am.
That's good. I'm teaching history.
I like genealogy.
Do you? Yeah.
Yeah. So that was something my dad and I always did. My grandfather, Joseph, Dot's husband,
yes,
did, and his mother. So I have my great grandmother's handwriting in a notebook where she just wrote out her history of the Driscoll family, and that's so precious to me. I mean, it's just who has something like that, you know? And before my dad had dementia, we would ride around before even the internet. We would ride around on Sundays and just look at cemeteries, and that was what we did. Drove my mother crazy. And
I love it too.
When my husband and I met, I was well on the path to putting my genealogy into a program my dad had bought me called Family Tree Maker, and computers had first come out.
Yeah.
And well, anyway, fast forward, you know, I married my husband, and then he's like, well, maybe I want to look back on my family, and I'm like, go ahead, do it. I mean, it's very addictive, but yes, you can do it.
Yeah.
So I have our family history, the fish line, which would be this great grandmother's maiden name, and I have that back to 1100. And my kids were like, Mom, you gotta stop, because eventually your genealogy is going to be like in the beginning.
Back to Noah.
Well, I didn't realize you had the fish line, so then you must be related to Barbara Fish.
Or it's got to be in there. I have to look, because I can't. Long ago, stopped memorizing all the names that were in there, but it was actually Fyshe, Fyshe, from England.
Yep.
And I am the 38th great granddaughter of William the Conqueror. Not that he was a very nice guy.
Yeah.
It's a piece of information.
Yeah.
He likes to drop that quite a lot.
We all have our skeletons.
Yes, right.
So it's so precious to hear this. I know on the look side, our name in Scotland was Luke, I believe.
Yeah.
Then it was Look, and then they dropped the E when they came here. Much as you said, Beale was like that. Yeah. So there's a lot to that. And I guess what made me think about in watching your trip there to Washington, not only that my sister-in-law lives in Seattle, but I had learned that the Prestons, my grandmother was a Preston, way down the road, and Stephen could confirm this, Stephen Preston, my cousin, that there were some Prestons who left down East Maine and went to Washington as lumberers.
Oh, I bet.
I bet. So I guess that was where I started getting confused, because we have so many guests. And so I had thought more about your story but this is beautiful talking about it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of like,
I'll send you your line, because I can put your name in, and it will pull up all of that Preston, what I have for information anyway.
That'd be great. I know Stephen did quite a bit of it, and I know Melanie Ferguson has done a lot on the look side. Yeah.
And I have her book, and I actually Daddy bought me a copy of the book. He bought himself a copy of the book, but I actually got in touch with Melanie the beginning of the year,
Mhm.
And she sent me the digital file of all of those pictures.
Oh,
Would
wow.
you like a copy of those?
Oh my gosh, yes.
That would be really cool. It's really cool
Yeah.
to go through her book. It's all in black and white. But then
Yeah.
you open it up and she's got all of these color pictures. And I was like, oh my word, Melanie, what a job that must have been.
It
For
was. I remember when she was doing it.
you.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And then it led me down a journey to look at old pictures. One of the things that was bequeathed me, and then I want to talk about letter writing, if you don't mind, military letters, and see if
yeah.
Brent, your dad had written, because my creative writing class, we're doing fictional letters from home or to home from the war. And so I'm reading different ones, and they've got to get into the mind of whoever it may be and write a letter. But my aunt bequeathed to me my dad's lunchbox. It was actually my grandfather's. And in that lunchbox are all these letters I never knew existed from my grandmother to him.
Are you talking about Francis?
No, it was on the Ackley side.
On the Ackley side.
Okay. Ackley, he was in the Army. Well, I never knew my grandparents to be together. They divorced before I was born. They always got along, but they didn't, to read those letters. Oh my gosh, the love that they had for one another. Her nickname for him was Bub. I didn't know this. My dad was 4. My Uncle Jimmy was 2. And to read about the people in Holmes Bay, the looks, so-and-so has just been by, and it was just tears just running down my. Awesome. I read one to the kids today because I was trying to give them examples. We did Civil War a couple days ago. We did World War I yesterday. Today we World War II on the video, and then I shared these because he was in World War II, and I could hardly make it.
Aww.
And thankfully, we work at a Christian school, and the kids are great. And I think I saw one of the boys. He started tearing up just because I was like, but it is so great, the whole letter writing thing. And I think the National Archives, I know they do. They have all the Civil Wars. A lot of the Civil War letters they wear, depending on their social status, but the handwriting in their education. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Lisa has a few letters that Dot wrote to Joe.
I had letters that when he was in the Army that she wrote and his mother wrote and his great aunts wrote him. And so I have all of those. And
what a treasure.
2 years ago scanned them and compiled them into a book for my dad called Letters from Home with his pictures of the military.
Yeah.
So I get that a lot. But I also have Civil War records of my great-great-grandfather. It would have been Joe's great-grandfather.
Okay, yeah.
I have his Civil War records. I have my grandfather's military records because he, what do you call it? Not commissioned them, but requested them through the National Archives.
Yes, you can do that, right?
Yeah, but they come on like 13 by 19 pieces of paper.
Oh, wow.
So, unfortunately, the only thing you can do is like kind of half fold them and tuck them away.
Yeah.
But I 3 months ago requested digital records from the National Archives, which they're doing now. Today's deadline. Today's makes the 3-month mark. I haven't heard from them yet, but
the wheels turn slow.
Yes.
In the government.
Yes, they do. They do. Well, I'm sharing a song I'd like you to look up. I don't know if you can see the comment section. If you can't see it, I'll send it to you later. But it's a song by Mark Schultz called "Letters from Home," and you might want to check that out because it's real. It's a tearjerker, and he's a Christian singer, but it's a great video to watch. Is what we're talking about here.
Nice.
I got started on that a few years ago when at Elm Street School where I taught. Karen Fulmer was doing a unit on Civil War in the 4th grade, and she played this song called "Ashcan Farewell" from the Civil War documentary by Ken Burns, and didn't have the speech behind it or the letter, but I was like a mess again. And I read that when people hear that song by Jay Unger, Molly Madison, there's just this uncanny, weird feeling. And so when they dovetailed the letter from Sullivan Ballou to his wife in the Civil War into that music, it's just, he died. It's haunting, hauntingly beautiful. He died, but the love that he had for his wife, you've got to check that out at some point. Sullivan Ballou, and they play the letter behind it. Some of the better videos have obviously Matthew Brady's photography of that terrible conflict in our country, but
Yeah.
But I mean, that started, I think World War I, there were a lot of letters going back and forth. That was the Great War. It was a terrible war because we were getting into these new weapons, right?
That's right.
Chemicals and larger guns and tanks.
Biological weapons. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the boys that fought in those trenches, what they had to put up with. Wow.
No wonder they don't want to talk about it.
No,
Yeah.
exactly. My grandfather never did, but one day he came up on his orange moped and got off that moped and we started chatting. You know, if you knew Lee, I don't know if you knew my grandfather, Lanessa, my father's Lee, but he's just an old codger and everybody calls him Droop, you know, and they used to throw bait for his supper out of the bait truck going by. I mean, he hit money in walls. He had checks he never cashed. I could say because I loved him, you know.
Yeah, right.
And he knew that, but he started talking about the conflict and how he was in France. And because I was always kind of afraid to tell him, ask, because I didn't know, you know, like you said. But
Right.
How was your dad with talking about the Korean War?
He didn't talk about the war much. Obviously, he was stationed in Japan.
Yeah.
And he was in communication.
Yeah.
So he was working with
Telegraph.
yeah.
Oh, yeah. Right. And
Stuff like that. Matter of fact,
Probably
he
sent
would
a lot of
always tell the story. He's like, we had the first microwaves. We were using the first microwaves back
Yes.
then.
yeah.
Um,
Wow.
so I think he did his service. He didn't talk too much about it. He certainly didn't see any conflict.
Yeah.
But I think that kind of instilled in me how important it is
Follow through.
for our veterans.
Yes.
and
Yeah.
and we are certainly a huge
Military
family. We support whatever we can.
Good.
Our son was in the Navy for 12 years.
Wow. Great.
And he did a tour over in Iraq.
Yep.
He just,
And our oldest daughters, our oldest granddaughters,
his daughters, both of
his daughters, her
Boy.
hopefully soon to be fiance is in the National Guard. He's going to make a career out of it.
Oh, great.
And Lanisa's brother was in the Army. So we've got a whole wall downstairs dedicated to our veterans and our family and our heritage, because it's just so important. And I'm always, whenever we have company, I always take them down and show them that. I have
That's great. Wow.
the flag that the Legion that they did when my dad died. They folded the flag and presented it to my mom, and
Yeah.
grandfather.
then the one from her grandfather. We have both of those on display.
That's great. Wow.
It's important that kids these days,
Yes.
and not just kids either.
No.
A lot of the
adults.
population don't appreciate
Yeah.
what we have and what we say
Mhm.
is freedom, and
Yes.
and
The
why
reasons we have.
we have that freedom,
Yes.
and
Yeah.
how fragile that freedom is.
Yeah. It is.
And I'm just proud that I have that heritage. I can reach back and,
Yes.
and have that foundation.
And pass it forward. I mean,
Pass it forward,
it's kind of like the genealogy. I mean, it makes us who we are. I mean, we like the song "Proud to Be an American."
Right.
We bring,
And you can't be ashamed. You
No.
can't be ashamed of where you've come from.
Right.
You can't change the past. The
No,
only thing you
you
can change is the future.
Yes.
You
And
know,
we can learn from the past. Nobody's, patriotism doesn't mean, and appreciating our veterans doesn't mean that you broad brush any of the things that happened that weren't good.
No.
It just means that despite that, I mean, think about those who were in the Vietnam War. They
That's
got
right.
mistreated so badly.
Horrible.
And thankfully, we finally recognized them a few years ago.
right?
And had the memorial. But I just think no matter what the conflict was, they went, they fought, they
did.
gave it all. Some returned, some did not.
Mm.
And when people are afraid to fight for what's right, and it's not a conflict with guns and so forth, and they back away, I tell them, you need to remember our veterans. And I'm sure you had some. So
Yeah.
don't give up the battle. Don't back down. If you see a freedom of speech or freedom of this or that that's being impinged upon by a state or federal government, we need to stand up for that, whether it's the
Right.
right to bear arms or the
Any
right
right. Any-
religion, freedom
yeah.
of speech. And I think they're being eroded. But I like to make that comparison because these people that we love dearly and we miss, who are in the grave now, fought for us to have those freedoms. And we need to fight this battle, whether it's taking it all the way to the Supreme Court, like some friends that I have. We just had on Coach Kennedy, and, you know, he got fired for praying on the football field.
Yeah.
And he took his fight all the way. And people say, well, politics and religion should mix. I don't know that that's always true. I mean, if you want to fight what's right, that's what matters. And he won that battle after
Right.
7 years of
Wow.
getting rejected, seven years or 9 times. And then he won the lawsuit. So I just think we need to be stronger about that and appreciate our families who are veterans in that.
Yeah.
Glad to see you guys have done that. Wow.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah.
So here's a complete 180 on our trip.
Yes. Getting back to the trip.
Back to the trip, but
Yes.
so my wife always says, no matter where I go, I can be in an airport, I can be anywhere. She's like, you will find anybody. You can just be walking along and you know
Yeah.
somebody, right? Or you find somebody that you're related to.
It's
So
true.
So we went, as you know, we did 5 days in the Pacific Northwest. And then in the middle of August, the hottest time of the year, we decided we were going to go to Charleston, South Carolina for
Mhm.
5 days on the beach.
Because we've never been.
Right.
Yeah.
Because, you know, we're from Maine.
Yeah.
And we're kind of stupid. And
Well, we
But
did
so-
take all 10, well, not all 10, we didn't have 10
Yeah.
then, but we took
But-
all of our granddaughters to Disney World on the 4th of July
Right.
one year.
so
Great.
so we're in South Carolina and we're looking for things to do because it is just unbearably hot and
Mhm.
humid.
It
But,
was-
yeah.
And so we had an evening planned in Charleston proper, and I'm looking of things to do, and I happened to find
the rainbow houses.
the row of rainbow houses or something. It's on the not Canal Street. It's on one of the water streets there in Charleston, and one of the houses, come to find out, was built by a guy with the last name Beale.
Huh.
Beale.
Okay.
And
Wow.
Bougie.
So and he was from Marblehead, Massachusetts originally,
Mhm.
and he ended up, he was a ship captain, which many of my relatives were in the past, the Beals. I also have Kelly on my grandmother's side.
Yeah.
So a lot of ship captains, a lot of maritime people. And so anyway, this guy ended up in Charleston, South Carolina. He was very important in the trade down there, and it was just cool that we could connect.
Yeah, for sure.
Brought back as much information as I could, and then this winter, when I dig into my genealogy a little bit, I'm going to make that read. See if I can connect.
Yeah.
So, it was just really cool. But my wife, she just shook her head. She's like, it never fails.
You never would know if you had to mention it. Some of us have got to start speaking.
Yeah. So it was really fun to do
My favorite thing on the trip, and this I know will touch your heart, Ralph, because I know you love music as much as I do.
Yes.
So my favorite thing on the trip was my husband had planned for us to. So the first movie that I ever saw in the movie theater was Coal Miner's Daughter with my
Okay.
dad.
Yeah.
Loretta Lynn.
Sorry.
Settle in. Yeah.
And he, is it an appropriate movie to take 3 little kids to? Probably not, but we didn't know that then. I mean,
Yeah.
we were just like, wow, this is a movie theater. This is really cool. And we ate some popcorn and I listened to a couple songs and I was just infatuated with her voice.
Yeah.
Or Sissy's face, I could think
Yes.
what it was.
You did a good job with that.
So anyway, I knew from the movie that she and Mooney went out to the Pacific Northwest.
Oh.
And
Loretta Lynn, yeah.
and yes, her husband, and then he sent for her once he got work. Well, my husband, who loves to investigate all things cool like that, took me to 3 of the buildings where she did her first performances, one of which she ran off into the ladies' room because she thought they were there to go to a dance, and he brought her there specifically to sing, and he wanted to get up on stage and sing, and it made her nauseous. and she ran into the ladies' room.
Oh,
So
what a
he
story.
took me to all 3 of these buildings where she performed. 2 of them are now,
One's a church.
one's a church, and they were
Mhm.
all 3 like
Grange
drinking
halls.
Grange halls where they used to drink and stuff.
Yeah.
But one of them is a church, and the other 2 were just boarded up. But it was just so precious. It
That
was
is cool.
so precious to me. I was just like, oh my word.
Well, that's old time country, and I do have fond
Oh.
memories of listening to her music, Uncle Pete, and all his albums
Yes,
spread out on the floor. And my uncle Lucky Luke was a country
I
singer.
remember him.
Yeah, he's great stuff. I was going to mention, I just saw a little while ago that her granddaughter, or maybe great granddaughter, was on The Voice and either was a finalist, and she's actually singing.
Yes, she does a really good job singing.
Wow.
I think it's her,
Oh, yeah.
it's her
granddaughter.
it's her.
Maybe it is granddaughter. She looked quite young, but,
Yeah.
but that would be about right. I'd like, man. So of course, me want another guest like that. Oh, got to find a contact, but sometimes it's hard to do that.
Yeah, that
Well,
would
you
be-
never know till you ask. Just
That's
like
right.
me, right?
That's right. I think I asked you one time before. Do you have any of Lucky's albums?
I don't, and Anita
We
was
had
going
one
to
when I
work
was
on
growing
that.
up.
What's that?
We had one when I was growing up.
Oh, we had a few, and I don't know but I think that Nada was going to work on that for me. His daughter Nada, and
Mhm.
we've been in contact. You know, when I go home, I visit her, and she watches our church services online because she doesn't get out much. But that will help me remind her. I got to get back in contact 'cause I would love to. I don't know if anybody's digitized this stuff, like with the
No,
photos.
I would love to listen to it again.
I can still remember playing Bangor Bound.
Yeah.
And from Wheeling, West Virginia, he's taking the trip. 95. I mean, such a great story song. And the one that was the most poignant one, he has Uncle Dick in it. And Uncle Dick, you know, he was the hunter and the storyteller. And he comes in, it's more of a talking song. He comes into this bar and Lucky, I think he went to visit Lucky down in Connecticut. And all the uppities with the pinstripe suits are looking at Uncle Dick. And it's hard to talk about that song without crying. And it's an ode to his brother, just being who he was, Uncle Dick, you know. So, yeah. And I think that Lucky, Aunt Margie, who was the oldest of 12,
Yep.
writing her poetry, and
Yep.
you guys doing your genealogies and history, there are a few ways that we can all tap into paying it forward with our family, like, because
Right.
we're losing it with a stupid phone.
Right.
And we need to learn ways to
Right.
preserve the heritage and then pass it on.
I keep my so we have all of our genealogy on what they call their GEDCOM files, GEDCOM, and that will that's how you can share. I don't like to upload it to the internet because then I have people picking it apart, and I know I was very careful with my research. Now I didn't go to England, but I was very careful with my research, you know, in doing that even before the computers. So I don't like when people go, no, you don't have that. That's not how that. Yes, it is. Sit down, Nancy. That's how it is. But I'll share my GEDCOM with anybody. I've shared it with my cousin Eric Snowdeal before, and it just I don't mind. People look at it, but I also have the ability to print off like your story.
Yeah.
So you have your name on the first page, and then it does its thing. And like I sent, did you ever know Ruthie Snowdeal? Ruthie, she married, I think her last name's Viola now. She was Eric and Evelyn Snowdeal's daughter.
Mm-hmm.
So I just printed hers off for her. She was a couple of years younger than my dad.
Mm-hmm.
She was 76, I think she is now. Anyway, it was 58 pages long. And I sent it to her, and she hasn't had time, I don't think, to look at it yet. I think they were going on a cruise up in the Maritimes. But anyway, it'll be waiting for her when she gets home.
That's great. We've got to get this down on paper. I mean, that's why I'm like John Boy on the Waltons. I write about what I know. And so I wrote about how my mother gave birth to me, feet first, and then I had meningitis from her perspective. And now I'm glad I did. I didn't publish or anything, but I've got it from her perspective because now she has Alzheimer's. And so when I die, the kids are going to know, you know, hey, about dad. And so,
That's so cool, right?
So Ralph, did you grow up in Machias?
No, that's where we lived there our last before we came to Michigan from what 2002 to 2017, right? Or 2004 to 2017, where our kids when they were teens, more or less. But I was from Cutler. Yeah,
Hello, yeah.
Cutler, all the Ackleys. Yeah, and
Yeah.
Holmes Bay was, you know.
So my great grandmother, my father's grandmother, was an Ackley.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah, she was an Ackley from Holmes's Bay.
yeah.
I had Lanisa try and go back through to see if there was any link there, but we didn't have any kind of relation directly there. But
Yeah.
we all know that everybody from down East Maine is related in one
Oh,
way.
yeah. Yeah. I know that.
Whether we want to admit it or not.
Call it
Right. Yes.
family
Yeah.
pole because it just
Yeah.
kind of goes up with no branches.
Yeah.
I know that there were some Ackleys that did marry into the Looks, and not just my mother and father. They actually were cousins because my father's mother had 12 brothers and sisters. Her father and my mother's father were brothers.
Oh wow.
The 5 brothers, Elma, and you probably know that better than I do. Ralph Look, Elma Look, Oswald, and Lynn Look's father, Leon. There were 5 of them that settled in Holmes's Bay. And so there were always big family gatherings on both sides. It's
Yeah.
incredible. And what a
Yeah.
legacy, a rich legacy to deeply appreciate. Yeah.
My mother was from Machias originally.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we got to go.
Yeah.
It's been a long day. I could go on and on, but I want to stay in touch with you guys about these
Yes,
things.
absolutely.
You send me some stuff. I just got a hold of my cousin Rhoda Hodgson, who's a Look. It's her mother was a Look, Verna, one of the 12, and she was going to send me a cassette tape with my grandmother's voice on it. So there are all these cassettes up there with people's voices. Some of us haven't heard for years. So I'm looking for my dad's talking on somebody's cassette is what I was looking for. I'll tell you my grandmother, but I'm looking for somebody because I forgot how he sounded. And you
Your
want
grandmother Ackley or your grandmother?
yeah, Mildred.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I know you got to go, but I noticed that you've
Yeah.
got I know you've got your Boston Celtics hat
Oh,
on,
yeah.
and I'm very proud of that. And
Yeah.
this doesn't go too far from wherever I am.
Yes, that's
No
right.
matter what, it doesn't matter. I'm always a Red Sox fan. I'm
Amen.
always a Celtics fan.
We'll get them next year, but I'm trying to. My bucket list for this year is to watch every game. And it's hard because you got all the streaming things now. So I got this little Dofu and I watch it on my phone. And then we'll probably go to see him play the Pistons this spring.
Oh, fun.
Well, I always like to pray at the end, if you don't mind.
Yeah, sure.
And with our emphasis on veterans, and we'll pray for them and for you guys too. So, all right.
Yeah, sure.
Father, thank you so much for this wonderful conversation with my cousin and her husband, Lanissa and Brent. Thank you for the connection. Thank you for working it out. And surely has been one of my highlights is being able to connect back down home, even though they're in Herman. It's still Maine. May not be down east, but it's all good because our memories of home will keep us alive, Lord. And I praise you for all the work they've done in genealogy and the history and the trips they've taken to bequeath to their own blood relations, all that they've experienced and the connections to home and family that make us who we are, that we're not alone in this universe. And we know we aren't because you're there, God. But to have that family name and to think about even the skeletons in the closet. So pray you bless their lives, Lord. And thank you for our time together. And we love you tonight. We praise you in Christ's name. Amen.
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 All right, let's stay in touch, guys.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
Have a good one.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
You too.